Hello, all, and welcome to Clergy and Callers Getting Coffee. Today, my special guest is the Reverend Doris Evans. She's the pastor of the United Presbyterian Church in Garden City, Kansas. She is the former vice president and currently media relations chair and chapter development chair for the National Black Presbyterian Caucus. She received her bachelor's in business management and labor relations from Cleveland State. She has her MDiv from Louisville Seminary, and currently we are in the DMin program together in missional leadership at Pittsburgh Theological Seminary. That is all a mouthful to say, but welcome to the show, Doris. It's nice to have you.
Hello, Reverend Leah. It
How
is
are you?
good to be here. It's good to be here
Yeah, so
with
one
you.
thing that we have in common, we have several things in common, but one of them is that we're both Ohio girls.
No,
Yeah, but we did not grow up in the same part of the state of Ohio. I grew up in the southeastern parts, and you grew up in the Cleveland area.
mhm.
Um, so how is that for you? Because you still have family there, right? So I was just wondering, like, how you balance all that I just mentioned, along with Doris as a person having family obligations as well as your pastoral ones. How do you do it all?
Well, my family is back home, back east, up north. So up, yeah, north and east, and they are they're doing well, and they're grown. So I expect them to act like grown-ups, even if I don't. And
Yeah, right. I like
yeah,
that you put that caution, even when I don't. Yes.
yes, yes. So so far it's working out very well. 2 weeks ago I was installed as a solo pastor here at the church.
I know. I watched your service online. It was very great.
Yeah, yes, it was great because the state clerk, J. Herbert Nelson, he was here, and Dr. Nelson, he gave me a charge, and I'm like, okay, that means I have some things I have to do now. So, uh, but
Do you like that when people remind you of or push you towards the things you have to do, or are you like, mind your business?
like, stop it. But no, but it was good to have him and the Office of General Assembly here, him in his particular office, and to be able to um, have words with them, eat and dine with them. And then my daughter was here. And by this being a small city, when everyone came into our regional airport here in Garden City, everybody has to go to Dallas Fort Worth first. American Airlines is the only one that serves us. So
Oh,
you
wow.
go to Dallas Fort Worth and you come in. So everybody was on one plane. So when I greeted my daughter, I also ended up greeting them. But it was good to have my daughter here. Even she took vacation for a few days, and we went to um, just around the city, like Dodge and Dodge City, this city garden, because I came out here in the middle of COVID, so I never had a chance really to go around the city like I would have wanted to, just arriving. So I was able to do that with her, and that was really special.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's really great to get to. I also always find it nice to get to view what your neighborhood, but with somebody who knows you from a totally different part of your life, right? Not somebody
Right.
who's local, but like getting to see things and notice things that maybe they didn't, and all that is pretty exciting. Now, one of the other things that we have in common, Doris, is that both of us applied for and were awarded the mental health grants that our denomination
Mhm.
put out.
Mhm.
Now, will you tell everybody what it is that you're doing? Because I think it's fascinating.
Okay. So I'm gonna have to back up a little bit.
Go
Um,
ahead, back it up.
so prior to um, the last General Assembly, prior to that, we had already applied for and we're in the process of applying for a grant. So I do have to do a disclaimer that we received the grant prior to me going to General Assembly. General Assembly, the committee I was vice moderator of, was also did some things with the Comfort My People mental health grant process. So
Okay.
I do need to say that. But for our mental health grant here, what we're doing is we are having different spotlights of um, mental health awareness throughout for Southwest Kansas. And we have also built a mental health provider network, which is something that was not here. And when I say Southwest Kansas, I'm talking about anything that is south of I-70 and west of Wichita.
Okay.
So
It's
where
a
we
big area.
are,
Yeah.
yeah, we're really close to, we're an hour from Oklahoma, an hour from Colorado. So that's that very corner of Southwest Kansas. And there's a lot of resources that are not out here. And there are resources that we are beginning to tap into to pull them, make them pull around a little bit of the area. So we have given programs on human trafficking.
Wow.
We have given, let's see, human trafficking.
Is that
We're
a
part,
problem in your area?
well, they say it is not, but I come from Ohio,
Yeah, it is.
and that corridor between Cleveland and Toledo, yes, it is. This is a very similar corridor. And I would say that there could be more here than what they know of.
Yeah.
Being that Garden City, there's a few truck stops here, but this is a major north-south and a major east-west highways that are rural routes that are, that are not on the main highway
Right.
system so we do, I'm sure it's more than what we've been found out. And so, we did that. We also did an awareness day for um, substance abuse.
Okay.
We've done a suicide awareness. We also did a day um, during our human trafficking event. We also had a company called Chains Break. It's a nonprofit organization that came up, and they do tattoo removal for victims of of human trafficking.
Oh, really? Do they, is
Yes,
that a, I mean, because branding is an issue, right? That
yes,
you
it
get
is. It's an
branded
issue.
with so and so stamp, like as
Mhm.
though you're not even human, right?
Yes,
And so that's great. They actually are able to remove it.
yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Excellent.
They're removing tattoos for people like that for free. And
That's amazing.
so, yeah, so that's part of what we're doing with our Comfort My People grant. Mhm. We'll also be this summer. We'll, usually we don't do things in the summer, but and starting in July, I have something coming up for just eating. Just it's a curriculum that was put out by the Presbyterian Hunger Program. I've
Mhm.
used it before. We have a garden here
In
that
Garden
we,
City, that's cute.
yeah, garden in Garden City that we have people have plots for, and we do have a harvest festival, but I'm doing this curriculum because I feel that a lot of times we're not cognizant of our fair trade people and of growing our own vegetables and teaching people how to garden, even if it's in a container or a raised bed or
Yeah.
something like that. So in our garden, although it's all ground level, just get down there and get in the dirt. we I hope to be able to also do something with some of the other, like there's a school across the street, maybe begin to teach them how to watch plants grow and
Right.
germinate and all that other stuff that we just kind of take for granted when we go to the grocery store and buy something and we don't know the chemicals that's in the ground.
For sure.
So yeah.
I mean, that's a huge conversation that you're hitting on. One of a book that I really liked. Now I'm on a wait list for another one I heard is what's it called? Braiding Sweetgrass.
Oh.
It's written by an indigenous woman. I think she's from this area, from like this part of the country where I am. But multiple friends from different areas, pastors and non-pastor friends, have recommended this book to me because it talks about that food justice that you're hitting upon. The other one that I read was, oh, I'm gonna forget, the animal farm plant mineral. I don't know. It's something like that. It's Barbara Kingslover, and
Okay.
she talks about uh moving like to her garden, and basically her family sort of laying out this way to be local tarians for at least a year, right? And
Hmm.
they each got to choose like something that wasn't local, when they went grocery shopping, or what they
Hmm.
tried to buy them from farmers they knew to grow their own stuff, recognizing that there are certain seasons then where they can't get things they love, because if you want to if you want to not buy it from wherever in the world that it's coming from, then you can't eat. Like, we eat bananas every day. Well, bananas don't grow here ever. Like, not in Northeast New York. I do not believe that. Maybe somebody's growing them in a plot. But then so tomorrow, soon, I mean, I think it's tomorrow, community gardens, which a friend of mine is really trying to highlight a lot. They're building their beds and things like that tomorrow, and we have a lot of, because of Cornell, the University of Cornell is not far from here.
Hmm.
Their cooperative extensions is what it's called, does a lot of work locally to try to help. Like, they give starter kits to the students who want them, gardening starter kits and things like that. Um, and so this year they're asking people to plant an extra row in whatever they're planting and donate it to local food pantries. And they
Mm.
listed all out this food pantry. So it's a huge and ever growing issue, especially, a lot of services that people were getting for free during quarantine
Hmm.
have just ceased. So
Yes.
school free programs have ceased. Some of these other food vouchers and stuff like that, services have increased. And I don't know about in Garden City, but I would love to know. But I know our local food pantry, our local one, has gone back up in numbers again because of
Hmm.
those services ending. And they're serving 30, 40 families.
Yeah, well, we don't have that's one of the things I think feel that we're lacking here
Okay.
is a place for places. There is a place that serves like meals every day, but it's a homeless shelter. But if you come to eat, chances are you'll get fed. There's one church here that I know of that does a food distribution. And I know, I think last month they do it on the second Thursday of every month. But like last month, they served close to 200 bags of food. But I don't know of anywhere else.
Mm,
And, like even here in our church, we have a uh, utility assistance. Through a gift to the church, I was given some money to be able to help with some other things. And I am seeing a shift in what people are needing now. I'm seeing people that are needing help with rent, for
yeah.
gas to get to medical appointments, for prescriptions, for other things that, just they weren't just asking for prior to this. So this shift in the after COVID, the post COVID culture,
Mm,
people are beginning to see, oh yeah, we need each other again. We've been living in these silos and
right.
individuality for the last 3 years or so, but now it's really coming back that no, we need each other. We need each other to do things like the farming, or to do this extra row of planting, or if we have extra and people are giving these gifts, to tithe in that gift, so if you get $100, add an extra 10 over to the benevolent fund, for lack of a better word.
Right.
And it's not so much as a benevolent fund, we need to have fun. Because most of us,
Interesting title. Yeah.
yeah, we need to have, because, if I think about it, most people are two to three paychecks away from hitting a level that would be considered poverty for
Yeah.
them. 2 to 3
Yeah, and
paychecks.
I think also living in that constant stress has got to be challenging.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, to never feel like you get to take a real deep breath
Yes.
and,
Mm-hmm.
to always worry about what is, if I do this, then what's the cost? If we do
Mm-hmm.
this, then that, and not being able to enjoy is really, it's heartbreaking when you
Mm-hmm.
think about it. Like that's,
Mm-hmm.
to kind of live always in crisis. We know what that's, I mean, my church isn't one of these churches, but churches and or places at moments in time when they're living at high crisis levels, right? You have to do some serious work to feel healthy again and
Yes.
and to stabilize, and that takes unique skill sets. Like not everybody has that. Although I would say you have that. You have a very calming presence.
You're just so kind.
What, you don't
Well,
think you
thank you.
do? You don't.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I've been told that.
Yeah.
I've been told that almost consistently, and I don't see that. But you know what? That's God, because that was not me. That was that was not me. And sometimes I think about things that I'm doing now, and I'm like, Lord, you have really worked on me to be that a peaceful person, because that's I thank you for that. That's all I can say is thank you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if it's a place that's so interesting too, where we see ourselves struggling, um, I like to call these. God and I have this real way of talking to each other. My best prayers are probably when I'm driving, because I'm like,
Okay.
God, let me just tell you something right now. So that's how I mean, I talk to God, I would say formally, but there's very often where it's more,
Yes.
you know, God, I did not need that lesson today. And God's like, "Yeah, you did, because you still didn't get it. So yeah, you did."
Yes.
And
Yes.
and I know that because it keeps coming up in those areas. So, I call those moments those wrestling moments. Like those are my Jacob and or Jonah moments where I'm wrestling with God or trying to avoid where God is like, "I told you to do this
Hmm.
thing."
Hmm.
And so what would you say some of those are like for for you? What are those what is your like relationship with God in that manner? Or
Well, I too have a formal conversations with God, but I think when you see, you say peaceful, I have an air of peace. You should be here on the days when I just throw up my hands and I walk around and Jesus, you know, come help me, you know. And people are looking at me like, what is this? What's happened? Um, and then there are those formal times when I'm, in my quiet space, when I'm okay, this is today, and this is what happened today, and thank you. But yeah, I do have both. And just like this morning, I was sitting having a cup of coffee before I left the house, and uh, I saw this little thing coming down my curtains. And I'm like, what is that? And it came down, And then it started flying. It was a moth. It was a big moth. And I instantly went ballistic. I'm like, oh no, you are
Yeah.
not getting to my clothes. Okay. And I found the fly swatter and I'm trying to swat this thing and it keeps going up in the light fixture. And I don't want to swat the light fixture because
Well,
it
you don't
might
want to break it.
fall and then it's gonna cost me time because I'm gonna have to, clean it up. But I'm thinking all this stuff. I'm like, so but eventually I let it outside. I didn't even kill it. I just opened the door and it, I guess, smelled the fresh air and went out. But
I do not have that relationship with bugs, Doris. I have a rule with bugs. I remind them all the time. Like, I will leave you alone in your space. Don't come into my space. You're like, that's it. You're dead. And and you know, we were just talking about nature and like being in the dirt, all that kind of stuff, but that dirt needs to stay outside.
well, see, now here it's so windy here sometimes. I forgot who I was listening to, but they were talking about the Spirit of God and how the wind just blows and you don't know where it starts and you don't know where it ends. Well, sometimes I can tell you that it ends at my door because it pushes that sand and that dirt right up under my door. And I'm like, why do I open the door and I'm like, why do I have sand here? But because it's so dry here. Pray
And
for rain
flat,
for
right?
us. Pardon?
Dry and flat.
Dry and flat, yes,
Mhm.
yes. And we really need rain. We had some a nice amount of rain a few days ago, but it's already soaked in. The river is now dry again, and
Wow.
we just don't have a sustainable amount of water here.
So,
And
so
or Mhm.
no, I was gonna, sorry. I was gonna ask that, and I asked it before you were done talking about it. Does Kansas is that Colorado River? Is that also feed into you all, or where's your water source come from? Because like, I mean, upstate New York, we have the Great Lakes and the Finger Lakes. Like, we have water is a huge resource around here.
Yeah,
We
and
want to
that's
keep
how
it
it
that way.
Yeah, and that's how it was when I was in Ohio,
Right.
in Cleveland. There was, the great Lake
Right
Erie
up the
right
street.
there, it always had water. But here, so we have an aquifer, it's the
Okay.
Ogallala aquifer, which feeds off the water coming from, I believe it's the mountains in Colorado, because we're that close.
Right.
But we also have the Arkansas River. Now, see, I said Arkansas. Some
Yep.
people say
Yep.
Arkansas, but I'm here and they call it Arkansas. So the Arkansas River um, also flows through this part, but there's no water in the Arkansas River. It's it's subterranean, and I don't know how far down it is. And
Huh.
I do know there is a concern about water out here, even in this bustling city, because Garden City, well, this is not a small, they consider a small city, but I consider this city equal to the size of the city I was living in Cleveland. They actually have more amenities than the city I came from in Cleveland, which was Euclid, Ohio. Euclid, Ohio has some things, but out here, when I moved out here, there's two Walmarts, a Target, and a couple McDonald's and Wendy's and Popeyes and all this stuff. But and this particular area right here is home to, I believe it's three of the big four beef companies.
Okay.
So with that being said, there are at least 30,000 people in this city.
Right.
There's at least 42 languages though that's spoken in this city. Um,
That's
and
beautiful.
mhm,
That's beautiful though.
yeah, it is beautiful. I'm not getting off the subject of water, but that's just to say the the water is used, but we have to figure out a way how to reuse some water, like the water that's used in the process of making milk.
Yeah.
That can be reused. That's, it's not it's not dirty water, but it's a way of how you would have to clean it and remove those extra particles out of it um, to be able to use it. And it's not a process of evaporation, but it could be a process of evaporation and taking the steamed
Right.
around and flowing that in a different way. So I don't know. I know they're looking at different ways of doing water here, but I did touch on my next subject. So we have a ministerial alliance out here,
Yeah.
and they elected me president while I was at my last cohort. I was not there. And there was time to find a president, and I wasn't there, so I was elected. So I'm like, okay, guys, that's real funny. When I went to the meeting, the next meeting, I said, "So, what happened last time? Oh, you're not president." And they kept talking. I'm like, okay, so they're joking.
But
Come
they
to
were
find
not
out, no,
joking,
they
Doris.
were not joking.
No.
So, but we have something coming up called a Community Cultural Day
Okay.
um, um, on the 20th of May, that Saturday. And what it is, we invite all the cultures in the city, all 30 different cultures. It's a little bit more than that now, but all of them to come, have a table. We provide them with um, meats and little so that we can have tasting things if they need electricity, whatever. But none of the sponsors, we don't allow any advertising for any of the sponsors.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and this is the second year that we've done it. And this year we got pretty good response from the sponsors from last year as far as providing things for the um, the different cultures. Um, we also, yesterday was National Day of Prayer,
Yes.
and we had, so there was the PCUSA and the Nazarene Church and the Latter-day Saints, and I can't think of who else, but and one of the Baptist preachers. So there were, a few of us, and we just were. The city lets us the last 2 years use the big park downtown on the square, and we were able to do something with that for that hour, like a lunch hour presentation. So prayer. It was just strictly prayer. Read the scripture and pray about it.
Right.
Read the scripture and pray about it. And
Pray
it
about
was
it. Right.
really,
That's the format for the National Day of Prayer. I mean, that's nice to do that. We have a committee that organizes that around here in our community.
Mhm.
I was only actively involved once, but like, the sign is out in front of our church inviting people to
Okay.
that. Like, um, yeah, I mean, here in this community, I was only actively involved in that once. And that's always a very interesting thing. There's a lot of power in being able to pray with one another. But having all those different cultures, and I imagine there are some cultures that have dealt with water. I'm still back to that water crisis because different farmers or different people in different places address their water shortages in a variety of ways. And I always get curious about um, who has access, who owns water rights. A lot. I believe the United States has more regulations on that than several other countries. But then in your town, it depends. Like if they allow water catchment systems from the rain, what kind of pumps they allow you to do. Um, they this part of there's a manufacturer here. They make various types of pumps, so it's Gould Pumps and Xylem, who both work on, that's exactly what they work in. And they make all these different pumps in order to get water up. And one of the ones that I find coolest, just cool, interesting, is this treadle pump that they have, which used in places like the Rotary Club bought some, or Xylem donated. I'm not sure, maybe a combination of both. And they took them to Malawi and installed them for the farmers there to run irrigation,
Mhm.
because if you bore the hole correctly into the ground, right, the right length, then you can pump this treadle, and it's easier than one of these hand pump things, you know.
Mhm.
Um, but water sometimes is in the ground, um,
Mhm.
and of course we have services and things. Sometimes we all use too much water. That was one of the things when I came back from Kenya as a Peace Corps volunteer. This is 15 years ago. I never I had trouble in transitioning, like appreciating water fountains. I don't
Mhm.
I had a real hard time. I have since learned, I've rediscovered that I can appreciate them, and still, um but I had a hard time because I was like, man, the girls in my village, because it was often the girls, walked 14 miles a day to get dirty water.
Mhm.
For their family, and then this is like perfectly clean water that's just being, it's just art. and
Mhm.
and so I had a hard time transitioning with that. So I wonder, are you are you interested, are you part of those conversations? Do you find, like, is your church interested in having those conversations with the community or local
Well,
governments or any of that?
it's true. Well, a couple things. One is I've noticed that the people that come from different countries that have water issues, their plantings are different. Their
Yeah.
what they grow is different than what I would grow, because the the type of crops that they grow would have to be something that's more sustainable in dry and arid conditions. Whereas for me, coming from Ohio, what I plant out here, I need to water more than what they would come out and water.
Right.
um, the catchment systems out here, because this is largely farmland where I am. So there's grain, soy, wheat, and milo are the biggest crops out here. And with the like I said, I think it's three of the big four meat companies. There's a lot of cattle here,
Yeah.
so there's a lot of cattle that require a lot of care,
Hmm.
and so that's also something with the water, and a lot of times the catchments that's being used is for that, used in different areas. The irrigation systems that they use, most of the farmers use a certain system. I don't know what it's called. I just see it off the highway, and I see it. I'm like, oh, okay, I know that that's an irrigation system. Um, Most of the plantings out here are non-GMO. So mostly everything that you're getting out here is real. It's not, and it has seed, real seed
Real
that's
seed.
going to come back
Germinating
again.
seeds. Yeah,
Yeah,
heirloom seeds.
you can get that other seed and it doesn't come back. And then I do think, with the water issues here. So I have this really small pea brain, and my little small pea brain tells me that if they can pipe oil and gas across this land, they can pipe water across this land that will do a lot less damage. See, that's my little pea brain saying, well, where's the water? When places are flooding continuously,
Mm.
where's the water? And why is that happening in those places, continuously experiencing environmental disasters from water, when that water could be piped somewhere like here that could really use that water? So that's my little pea brain talking about that. And I've said that quite a few times. Hopefully someone that has some power will hear it at some point and say, maybe our pea brain's not far off.
Yeah, well, I would say it probably isn't far off. I had a similar I've never called it my pea brain, but I mean, I might start. Um, but like when I went to some human trafficking training years and years ago, I was like, wait a minute. My Facebook algorithm can start sending me ads if I or anybody else even remotely Googles a pair of boots, and you're telling me you can't catch predators better? I was like, wouldn't it be a similar like doesn't the algorithm already exist? And why then, if it exists, isn't it being used in the level of capacity the advertising algorithm is being used?
Mhm.
Um, and I imagine there it must be some similar programming that's used. Um, but it's always fascinating to me. This is something I've wondered if churches, as we've grown smaller in number, and um, the impact of several scandals in across the
Yeah.
across all our various denominations and stuff, has made us less of a voice of morals and ethics as maybe at one time those positions we held. And at the same time, I do feel like that power of naming or pointing out, like you just did
Mhm.
with your pea brain, you said about water, and just posing the questions and going, what's the what's the ethics of this? What's the ethics of being able to do
Mhm.
this with oil,
Mhm.
which we also rely on, but not at the level we rely on water. Like we need
Yes.
water more. Um,
Yes.
and so I don't know if you have a response to that, if you have insight into that.
I don't have any insight into that. I just think it is a justice issue to me. It's a fewfold justice issue. There is a theology around remaining for the people that continue to live in these areas that continue to flood all the time, that continue to experience these environmental problems. They're remaining, and I don't know if it would be me that would remain after the third or the fourth time that this has come and just wiped me out. I really don't know that, but
Yeah, that level of hope.
mhm,
I yeah, that is unique. That is
mhm, mhm.
must be ancestral. Like,
Yes, yes, and it's just, I just, me personally, I just feel that there's a way to get for even if it rains, even if they get all of that water to be able to channel it to somewhere else that could be able to use it. That's why they do dams and locks. Okay, that's why they do dams, locks, and all this other stuff, these
yeah,
other things, why can't it so the Mississippi's flooding? Well, that might be a little ways away from where I am. However, it's the Arkansas River attaches to that some kind of why can't the water be attached to the you know dam, dike,
right.
levee, something. That, like I said, that's just my little brain. And I know here, with my members here, they are concerned about other countries,
Mm.
and the water issues they have. There was, this past January, the um, in association with the United Methodist Church, they went to Honduras
Oh,
and did built water, um, for inside plumbing.
okay.
So they strung the pipes from high up in the mountains down to the villages below to be able to get the water into the homes. And there were some people that did not want them to come and put the pipes into their homes. And I'm like, why is that? I think I would have been grateful to have someone else come in and put the pipes in, but they were like, no, this is not, we don't want it. And but for the most part, most of the homes that they did, they were able to use the piping and bring it into their home.
Well,
So
you might not be able to understand the water into your home bit because we've grown up with water in our homes, um, but we can certainly understand doing something differently and the resistance that comes with that,
comes with that.
right? Right.
Yes.
I mean, all of us have to fight against those transitions, and the desire, you know, that
Yeah.
even if it's not good for us, it's what we know, so there's comfort in that, of
Hmm.
like knowing how to do it. Whereas you put pipes in my house, what happens when they break? What happens if they
Right.
flood? What
Right.
do I do? I don't know how to do that. I don't know. Like, I don't know what to do with all this extra time it might save me to not have to go and collect my water from a community
Hmm.
water source or something like that.
Right.
Like, and there might be time that you adjusted that, but those adjustments can be frightening,
Hmm.
even if we're like it's good for people. And hands down, I will take running water over electricity every day of the week, twice on Sunday. You better believe it. I will take clean running water over anything else in terms of ease of access, right? Like I was
Hmm.
like, I know how to build a fire. I'm not
All right. Yes.
I know how to read when the sun's out. Like I don't,
Yes.
you know what I mean? Uh
Yes.
but I don't know that I would have ever thought about that if I hadn't been in a place where those things were both scarcity, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
then but not have grown up in a place where those were scarce. Like I had them, then I didn't have them by choice, then whatever. Um,
Hmm.
then we're back here now. But like, well, you talked about floods. I know that your church had a baptism too.
Yes, we did have a baptism.
I love that you call it a baptism. I would have been like,
Well,
we had some pipes burst and we had a flood, and you're like, no, growth mindset, Leah. We had a baptism.
yes, we did. 30,000 gallons of water is a baptism.
I can't even fathom. That is a lot of water.
That's a lot of water. That is a lot of water. And when we came in that morning, because of course it happened in December, but it canceled our Christmas Eve and Christmas Day and New Year's Day plans.
Wow.
So that whole week was no water, but yeah, 30,000 gallons of water. You could walk through the water and it would just splish around the sides of your shoes. It was splish splash. And it was first, the outpouring of the community was really great because we had all kinds of assistance moving all of those pews out of the
Mhm.
sanctuary and the chapel into the fellowship hall, organized so that they would be able to go back in.
And
Um,
clean, right? They're not gonna get rotted from the water.
right, right.
Yep.
And we lost a lot of music though. Um, that was paper, that was different, and it was stored in the one room where the major break was done. We're in the process, though, of repiping the entire building. We're taking out all of the copper piping, putting in the plex, PVC,
Right.
more of a
PVC.
PVC type, so that it will expand and contract with the seasons, and double insulating the fittings because that's the only thing. The fittings are brass on there. So the fittings where it meets everywhere would be what would experience.
Now I get why you
So,
call it a baptism, because you guys got bathed in that, and then you came
yeah, we
out
did.
different. Then you
Yeah,
came out different than when you
that's
went,
right.
right?
That's right. And we're
And that's a
continuing to
baptism.
come out differently
Right.
because not only was it was an eye opener about the building itself because that was the third time that the
Oh,
pipes had burst. So we don't want to do this again. Well, number one, we don't have the energy, and the congregation's older. So, 20 years ago when they had or 10 years ago when they had the first one in 2011, everybody was 10 years younger, so everybody could come and,
Wow.
move everything around and
Well,
out and
you're
about.
you're in the right church because you talked about the third time would be the time that you moved out of a flooding area. So apparently your church, you guys are in the same mind meld because they're like, this was enough.
Yeah, yes,
We got to
yeah.
fix this issue.
So and currently, so last week we had no water in the building because they're beginning to work on the pipes.
Oh, and they got to
They
shut
finally
it off.
got
Right.
this east end or this west end of the building fixed so that we would have water for Sunday. And we did have just cold water. Running water, I'm like you, Leah. Running water is really important to me.
Golden.
So yeah, cold water is fine for me. That's fine. And especially when you have a Keurig and I can just put the water in there and
Heat it
have my
up.
coffee, I'm okay. I'm done. But with the cold water, like I said, we were able to have service on this past Sunday in the church. And now they've gone part of the way through the west side of the building. But even with that, we discovered we needed additional hot water heaters.
Hmm.
So we put in smaller hot water heaters, but there's two additional hot water heaters that are being put in because at sometimes during the winter, it would take a long time to run water to be able
Right.
to get hot water. So, it's changing, doing something new. And I can't wait to see what we decide to do with the painting, because of course it was so humid in here. Even in the middle of winter, I've never seen that much humidity in a place. But all of the walls streaked because it was so humid. So you can see all of the streaks in the
Okay.
wall. So we're gonna need to paint, and the carpet we were able to dry out, and because we don't have a basement, but we do have a crawl space under the the chancel area. So that was
So we have tons of basements. Like my office where I am right now is in the basement part of the building. So there's the
okay.
sanctuary and with the balcony and then all the towers, right? One with the bell and one without a bell. Uh, but then the sanctuary is like huge, and then underneath the sanctuary, but they're tiny little windows here. You can sort of see it here, but little whatever. But then we have a sub basement. So
Oh,
underneath me is another layer where all the pipes, not all the pipes, several of the pipes are. So there's like this sub basement. So we have these like cutouts in parts of the floor where church, like in the walls and the some in the walls and some in the floor, that you pick up that thing and then you can crawl down underneath it. It's cold, it's damp, it's moldy smelling. Like I don't like it. I do not. I discovered that I
okay.
not a fan of crawl spaces. That's
Hmm.
what I discovered, and it's like the little 8-year-old girl in me that hated getting dirty is the reason I don't like. She bubbles to the surface in
Hmm.
those moments, and
Hmm.
I'm like, if I know I'm getting dirty and I'm prepared for it, just like with the bugs in the garden, right? There's like a preparation that has to take place, and then I can do it, and I can get dirty and get my hands dirty and tolerate a bug. I just pretend they don't exist.
Yes.
But if I'm not ready, I'm then I'm like,
No.
oh no. It's like you with that moth. Don't you go to my clothes. Don't you go to my clothes and destroy them. Yeah, I mean that's fascinating to think about. Now, what has that part of you always been, that like how do we see this moment as, like, how do we see the blessing in the moment? Has that been a practice that you've done your whole like life, or was there a specific moment where that began to be the way you moved forward?
I I think that there was a specific moment when I um began to see things more as of a blessing instead of a hindrance.
Mhm.
Um, I think a lot of that had to do with my reconciling and with my dad's death after the period of grief because I had a very long period of, well, it was a long period of deep grief for
Mhm.
my dad's death. He committed suicide,
Oh,
which is one of the things that, or completed suicide, which is one of the reasons why I do mental health things.
right.
Um, and he was depressed and he was on a lot of chemicals. And the chemicals,
Not helpful ones, the
right, they
unhelpful
were
ones.
not helpful.
Right.
And although the doctors probably thought they were helpful, they were not. And so it took a while, a long while, but when I began to really see blessings, there were, I could see, I would just say to myself, oh, okay, I guess that's why that happened. Or, okay, I guess this is why this happened. Oh, okay, okay, now I know not to go down that road, I go another way. So it hasn't always been that way,
Mhm.
but yeah.
Yeah, I mean that that's a very real, thank you for sharing that. That has to, I mean, even if you've reconciled, it's not as though things aren't still painful. Um,
Right.
but also to to go, I don't want, if I can prevent one person from experiencing the pain
Mhm.
of losing somebody in that way, or preventing someone from making that decision or that choice, um, that makes the work really really important. And of course, I mean, I think it's easy to get lost in all places and to feel that level of loneliness in rural areas, like where you're describing where you live. It is harder to get those services. They tend to come
Mhm.
more in
Mhm.
telehealth or teledoc ways
Mhm.
um, than they do sometimes in person. Um, it's very fascinating to me when people make the choice, and I hope I do this as well, but when you make the choice to take those painful, hurtful moments, and instead of trying to ignore them, right, with God we dive deep into them,
Mhm.
and what God is able to do with that. Like, I always say that God does their best creating out of chaos, right?
Mhm.
So, to firmly believe that God is capable to help process that. I don't know what stages of emotions you went through after your father's death, but I think it's fairly normal following the death of a loved one to feel numb, to feel
Mhm.
angry,
Mhm.
lost, frustrated, like all those things, and maybe all of them in a single hour of a day, right?
Mhm.
Um, so so what helped you process that, I guess, to get to the part where you felt like this work I'm doing is reconciliation work?
I think when when the first person that came back and said to me that it was helpful for them to, first of all, to see someone that looked like them, that could speak their language, and say to them, are you serious? Are do you have a plan? Is this really what it meant a little something to her that I approached her that way. And I think after that first time, it was pretty helpful. And then after I had my own health issues, I had to become more aware uh, of God in my life and how God uses certain things and that happens to us in our lives to propel us forward, either in a relationship with Him, with God, or um, a relationship in a way that will help someone else in a relationship with God.
Yeah, that's really, really powerful. It has been very I have enjoyed listening to pieces of your story, and I'm looking forward to being face to face and with you where I can ask you even more questions. But I have to stop asking questions now because we've come to the closure. And so I only have one final question for you, Doris.
Mhm,
Um, my final question for you is if you, Doris Evans, were a Care Bear, you
mhm.
know, what color Care Bear would you be? And what is that symbol on your belly, that core Doris symbol that God has given you as a gift that you get to project out into the world to show God's
Okay.
love? What are those things?
Okay, so Care Bear would have to be colorful, hence colorful.
Yes. Or is that colorful tone, like those jewel tones?
I
Not
so I do I like browns and darker colors, but they have to be kind of
yeah,
bright.
vibrant. Yeah.
Yes, vibrant. And
Well, yeah, you're vibrant.
yeah, I like those colors, and I like greens, really earth tones, but vibrant earth tones.
Hmm.
I don't like the pastels as well as the heavy brighter ones.
I'm with you, Doris, on a personal thing. Yes, I'm with you.
And then for um what I carry would I would think would be I've learned patience. Has learned patience. So that I think that's one of the big ones. Learn patience. Learned how um, to show love, not just do love, but how to show it and how to be compassionate, empathetic.
Right.
So I think those are
So what would those look like as a symbol?
as a symbol.
Yeah. How would you embody them as a symbol? It might have to be abstract art. I don't know, Doris. I don't
It
know.
is abstract art. I had went straight to abstract.
Did you really?
So yes, I did. I went to, okay, it would be similar to a um a roller coaster that has gone up to the top slowly,
Uh-huh.
slowly,
Yeah.
slowly.
That click
It,
click click click
click,
click click.
yes, yes. And then it's coming down and it's like whoosh. And when comes down, it's like you're picking up all this stuff, all this peace, this love, this compassion, this
Yeah.
empathy, and then you're going back up, click, 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 and every time it clicks, this time it's using it,
Yeah.
just and then you're going back down in that rush, and you're picking it back up.
I love that a girl from Ohio chose a coaster as the symbol on her belly, knowing that it Ohio is the land of the roller coasters. For people who aren't from there or don't know, Ohio has some of the best roller
That's
coasters
roller coasters.
in the world. Not
Hmm.
just in their state, but in the whole world. And if you are a coaster lover, it is worth going to those places to ride those big coasters.
Yes.
Um, and so that's I do love that I called you a girl, but a woman. It's because I call myself a girl, even though
Oh, it's okay. It's
I'm
okay.
grown.
I'll take it. I'll accept it.
Even
I
though
got it.
I
I
try to be
receive.
grown most of the time. Though there are moments, Doris, when my grown self does not come out very well. That there are times where I look around for the adult in the room, like, like where, because my parents, are both deceased, and there are moments where I'm like, where I want that adult to call up to just take care of this mess because I just don't want to be the one
I
to do
just
it
don't want to
today.
be the one.
I
Yes.
just want a day off from mess cleaning. Um, that's when you call into the networks, right? You call outward out in those branches. But I think that's beautiful. And I always have wanted somebody who's listening to this podcast to be to be a very good sewer. Who could like make a version of all these clergy Care Bears like for real, and make them come to life. So who knows, if you plant that seed out there, someone might grow it.
Mhm.
It's not going to be me. Sewing is not a gift that I have been given, nor, as I say, some or cultivated, right? So
Mhm.
sometimes you might know some basics, but you gotta cultivate it. You have to practice it in
Yes.
order to get better. You just don't. Most of prodigies, being a prodigy at something is not common,
That's true.
right? Most of us have to practice on a daily basis to get good at, like as you said, learned patience, learned empathy. um and so I thank you for you taking a portion of your time and sharing it with us, Doris. Thank you for being a guest.
Well, thank you for having me. I've enjoyed talking with you, Leah.
Uh,
It's been good.
it's been
Yeah,
good. All right.
it's been good.